I want to welcome everybody to the Keys to Film Law. I'm Jan Feldman. I'm the Executive Director of Lawyers for the Creative Arts, and with me is my colleague at LCA, Chris Johnson. We're very happy and proud to partner with the City of Chicago's Film Office in this 5-part series. Here's the city's website. We are now in our 4th segment of this 5-part series. The prior segments began with a program on rights acquisition. We pivoted to fundraising issues. The third one was issues relating to distribution, and now this program is on assembling the team. Coming up, Chris, when is the next one? Do we have that scheduled yet? Well, we'll get back to you on the next one, exactly the timing of the next one. But our next and last program is going to be on production issues, so the actual filming of a documentary and the legal issues relating to that. As in the past, we have our moderator and in this case 3 prestigious speakers to get us through this topic today. It's an hour-long program. We do have a mechanism for responding to your questions. Please use it. It's if you scroll down to sort of the bottom of your screen, you'll find a Q&A section. And if you send us a question, we will be able to communicate it with the panelists and see if it's the right time to address it during the middle, or otherwise we will probably kick it over to the end. I also want to mention, if you have questions relating to the substance of this program afterwards, you want to reach out to Lawyers for the Creative Arts, please do that. We are at law-arts.org. And in addition to us being there, we are also we have also posted the links to the 3 previous segments of this series, so you can get to those as well under our resource tab at law-arts.org. So with that, I think that covers all the basics of this. And with that, I want to just quickly introduce our moderator, who will then introduce the rest of our panelists. So I'm very pleased to have Travis Life as the moderator for this segment. Travis is a very loyal and energetic partner with Lawyers for the Creative Arts for many years. He is currently a partner at the Chicago law firm of Swanson, Martin, and Bell, where he practices in its entertainment and media practice group. Travis's clients include artists and businesses of all medias, including songwriters, musicians, actors, authors, filmmakers, and various media companies. He handles transactional litigation and intellectual property management matters. That is a mouthful. Travis has successfully litigated high-profile complex cases for prominent artists and media companies. In addition to his law practice, Travis teaches entertainment law at DePaul University College of Law and Business and Legal at the Columbia College Chicago's Creative Producer MFA program in the Cinema and Television Department. He's also a frequent speaker at various colleges, law schools, and entertainment industry conferences throughout the country. And as I said, Travis has been a major part of the history of Lawyers for the Creative Arts, having founded our associate board somewhat about 8 or 10 years ago. So I'm very happy to have Travis helping us in this program today. And with that, I want to turn it over to Travis Life. Take it away.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for that very kind introduction. I am very excited for our panel here today. I think we just have absolutely amazing speakers with just a wealth of knowledge and information to provide for us. I want to do a brief introduction and then ask each speaker to kind of give us perhaps a brief moment of what they're currently working on. And we'll move into the substance matter. First, I want to introduce Mary Kay Cook. Mary Kay is an Emmy Award-winning independent film producer with credits spanning in multiple mediums, including features, televisions, documentaries, shorts, and web series. She's screened international films at international film festivals and domestic theaters, as well as television and online. Recently, Mary Kay has been Mary Kay was featured on New City Film 50, and her current projects include I Used to Go There, which was screened at South by Southwest earlier this year, the TV episodic Emily in Paris, which is currently on Netflix, and the short film Long Ride Home, which was screened earlier this year at Bentonville Film Festival. So welcome, Mary Kay.
Hi, Travis. Thanks so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Absolutely. Next, we have Karen Loop. Karen is the Associate Dean for the Columbia College Chicago's Los Angeles program. She has nearly 20 years of experience as an LA-based creative producer, and her film credits include Secondhand Lions with Michael Caine and Robert Duvall, Frailty starring Matthew McConaughey, and most recently On the Basis of Sex, which Felicity Jones starred as a young Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
And then finally, but certainly not least, we have Emmy Award-winning filmmaker Barbara E. Allen. Barbara's films have screened around the world, from Cannes in France to Chicago International Film Festival here in Chicago, to the Pan African Film and Television Festival in the West Africas. Her 2010 film, Du Sablo to Obama, the Chicago Black Metropolis, broke the PBS pledge records. Barbara is awarded the 2013 Knight Fellowship in Journalism from Stanford University, which recognized her harrowing experiences of a filmmaker for the film Eyes of the Storm, which featured Hurricane Katrina victims. In 2018, she received another Emmy nomination for The Experience with Deidre Jones, in which she developed, produced, and edited for television. Currently, Barbara is working on a new film, Red Summer Winter Blues, the untold story of Black resistance, uprising, and awakening. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's great that this is just such a great panel. So first, I think what I first want to do is just ask you each, what are you currently working on? Anything of interest or not interest, it's all going to be of interest, but anything that you'd like to comment on for our attendees. Mary Kay, what's going on right now with you?
Well, as you alluded to, I have a television episodic that I worked on called Emily in Paris that's currently running on Netflix. And then I have my film, I Used to Go Here, that's now available after a run at the drive-in, now available online on a bunch of different streaming platforms. If you take a look at any of my social media, there should be like a link tree to all the different places that you can get it. So yeah, just kind of not a whole lot is going on with production right now, with production. So it's really more about development and lining things up. Everything that I sort of had lined up all got pushed due to this worldwide pandemic that we're in the middle of. So not currently filming anything at the moment, but certainly looking forward to sharing those projects when they do come to fruition down the road here later this year and into 2021.
Yeah, I guess that little health crisis has thrown everything off, right?
It really did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Karen, when you can pull yourself away from Columbia, what else do you have going on in your world right now?
Well, On the Basis of Sex was actually re-released in theaters, if the theater is open near you, because they aren't in California. And so I've been dealing with that. That just happened a few weeks ago when Justice Ginsburg died. And also, like Mary Kay, very few things are in production, so it's a lot of development. Taking the time to actually hone in on, scripts and polish them and package them. It's really actually excellent time to get people to read material, because before you would have a stack of stuff next to you, and it would take you a few weeks, if not a few months, to get to it. And now people are reading a lot quicker. So it's actually a good time to be in development.
Outstanding. Barbara, what's happening in your world?
Oh, well, as you mentioned, I'm working on documentary Red Summer Winter Blues, which is about the Red Summer of 1919, when there were 44 race riots in the country. And there was a pandemic going on. There was a racist president in office. And a lot of things sound pretty familiar. So the Winter Blues part of the film is about the upheaval that's happening today and how it compares. And I'm also in development for PBS on a documentary about the history of house music, which we know comes from Chicago. Yay, house music. So that's an exciting project to tell the real story, go all the way back.
Outstanding. Well, today's topic is assembling your team. So I think probably as kind of a basic launching point, a good question to start our panel is what exactly is a team? What are we talking about when we're talking about a team? And Karen, let me start with you. What role players or I don't want to say individuals, but different types of functions are you looking for when you're looking for your team for a film?
Well, I mean, it goes back to the development process, and you're looking for collaborators. You're looking for people who share the same creative vision that you have. And you're also looking people who are pleasant to work with. You're not no, I mean, you're going to, for a feature, you're going to live with these people for a very long time. And there's a reason, you know, we always talk about networking. And it's because, you know, I tell my students, J.J. Abrams does not put out a help wanted ad, you know, looking for interns, and yet he has them. Why? You find him, you know, it's all kind of who you know. You're going to be spending a lot of time with people. So you kind of go to the same people over and over. But so the team, usually what I get to do is hire the creative key department heads. And so I'm not going to hire a grip or a gaffer. I'm going to hire that cinematographer who's going to bring everybody down the chain with him or her. And it actually starts, when I do development, it actually starts with a line producer, putting together a budget in a day of days. And that line producer may or may not be attached to the project, depending on when the project happens. The project might happen 5 years from now or whatever. And actually, there are line producers out there who do absolutely nothing but put together budgets for projects, because I need to know, am I going out looking for $8 million or am I looking for $38 million, you know? And so the first person I usually hire is a line producer to do that budget in day of days. And then as we get closer, you start, you know, to package a script, you need people attached. And so, you know, so then it starts with the talent, and that includes not only actors and actresses, but also a director as well.
So Mary Kay, we talked a little bit, and Karen hit on a lot of the creative side of your team, looking at your line producer, your director. There might be some other high level key people that you're looking at as a part of your team as far as that initiative process. What about the business side? When you're looking at the business side of creating a team, what kind of individuals and what roles are you looking for that particular aspect?
Well, first and foremost, you need to get a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
See, bringing it all back for this panel here.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
No, certainly a lawyer is your law firm is an important element right from the get-go, because you need to have, you know, as far as everything with copyright and chain of title and making sure all of your documents are squared away, not only from a legal perspective, but also that's, you know, stuff that needs to be ready at hand and ready to go with, you know, SAG or any of the other unions, IATSE, the Teamsters, depending on how big of a budget you're going to be working at. So making sure that you have a lawyer and also an insurance agent, getting your insurance as soon as possible is another key element, you know, and making sure that you can afford to do the production that the line producer has, you know, budgeted out for you. So on the business side, there's those two key things. And then also, you know, you need the money to make the movie. So financiers are really important. And whether that's through, you know, grants and crowdfunding, or whether that's through private equity or an angel investor or something along those lines, it's important to also make sure that, because you do have such a fiduciary responsibility, generally with the LLC that your lawyer has set up, to make sure that everybody's comfortable and understands the waterfall and how everything is going to run financially. You know, you need to make sure that you're comfortable with whatever terms you have with your financiers as well. Are they going to take more of a back seat? Are they going to, want to come visit set? Are they, just like, call me in a year? Don't, there's so many options there. So as far from a business perspective, I would say lawyers, insurance, financiers are some pretty key players to making your movie go.
So Barbara, moving from like features or independent and looking at kind of the documentary world, how does that change for assembling your team as far as who the players are, if at all?
A lot of the work that I do is work for hire. So I'm with bigger companies like PBS, like a TTW instance in Chicago. So a lot of times the hiring of the team, sometimes the team is assigned to you. And in the words of Donald Rumsfeld, you go to war with the army you have and not the one you wish you had. But many times they do allow you to hire the people that you want. And I think that it really is, as for a filmmaker, it's a lot of self-assessment to know what you're not good at and to get the people that are good at that to do that, because I can't do everything and I don't want to. And it's a collaborative industry. So you find those people you can collaborate with. And my advice is find people who are better than you are, because it only makes you better. It's like playing tennis with a pro. You're going to learn a lot, but if you play with somebody that's on your level or less, then your game is going to be the same. So you always want to up it. So I always hire people that are better than I feel that a place that I'm in, I feel.
So Karen, Barbara brought up an interesting issue with her dynamic with public television, and that is the team might be selected for you. In the feature world, who selects this team? Who's the person that's pulling these players and assembling them together?
Well, it's usually the producer and the director. But I'll tell you, different films have different scenarios. So for like On the Basis of Sex, we had the money first before we had the director. So now we go out to CAA, WME, ICM, and they submit directors to us. And this is something we don't teach very well in film school, which is they have to pitch us. Why should I hire you as a director? Yes, I see your reel, but do we share the same creative vision, or what is your vision? So they need to come prepared with, they put in hours, if not days of work coming in prepared, pitching us and hiring that director. And so then once you have the director in place, it is the producer and director, and we screen cinematography reels, friends recommend it, you go to the people you've worked with before. And at the end of the day, the financiers, and I've always worked with like many majors, I've always worked with people like, Luna, New Line or Participant or Universal Focus, and their business affairs office is making the deals with the key people, right? And so they might say, this person is too expensive, we can't hire them, or this person's not bondable, we can't hire, or we've had a bad experience with this person in the past, or whatever. So they have a huge say in that. And then, like I said, once we've got kind of the key people, everybody else, they hire the crew below them. So like I said, the cinematographers will hire the camera operators and, the gaffers and the grips and that sort of stuff. And the paperwork, the nice thing is the paperwork gets easier and easier the further it goes down. But the important thing is that everybody signs that work for hire, so that they understand that the production owns all the creative elements to this, right down to the PAs.
So Mary Kay, as a producer, creator of independent films, I'm imagining that having team members audition for you might not necessarily be the norm. How does it happen in that particular world when you're looking to assemble your team?
Well, I think in terms of department heads and stuff, certainly Karen is correct. You reach out to your network and you say, hey, I'm hopping on this, I have this project, and here's the dates, and here's the, range, and here's the director, here's any attachments, here's what we're looking to do. Would you be interested in, an interview? Would you be interested and available? And so you just, you reach out to your own network, you get referrals. Generally it's word of mouth, especially in a town like Chicago. Everybody, is on the same team, and it's a small, big city. And so, yeah, it's really just about reaching out to them, finding out who's available, who's interested in the project. Certainly, if you are familiar with their work, on past projects or have worked with them on past projects, know their aesthetic, know if it's if it seems like it's gonna be a right fit. And so generally I'll bring, 3 people to the table per department role. And then, yeah, they basically have an interview. Sometimes they'll have like their own little pitch deck that they'll put through, or like in the case of a cinematographer or something like that, they will show us their reel, or potentially put together some sort of lookbook or something like that. We've had that with costumes as well. And so, yeah, it's really about, as Karen alluded to, creating that working environment, pleasant working environment where everyone's on the same page and really feels like part of a team. It's that synergy is so important, because you are going to live with this project for years and years and years, like from development through distribution. It takes a long time. The fun part is, production, is being on set, but you really have to be thoughtful about assembling your team, because you are going to be, working really long hours and fighting fires, putting out fires together, hopefully not literal ones, but, there's always something. And so you really need to have the trust in your team. So that's why I think it's important, that you get the right mix. And if you don't, you're going to have some stumbling blocks along the way. You're just going to make things harder on yourself during production. So yeah, that synergy and that team focus and goal of everyone's working towards the same vision, executing the director's vision in their various departments, then it's a wonderful, synergistic experience. And you're like, I love my job,
Yeah, I agree with Mary Kay, because I think it shows in the film when the team is really together. I did a small film that we had absolutely no money on, and the team came together and they all really believed in the project and they wanted to do it, and they went above and beyond anything we could have paid them if we had the money. And we were expecting nothing with this little film. And this is the film that ended up at the Cannes Film Festival, because it all came together so beautifully that you could feel it and see it in the film.
Wow, that's perfect. I was just going to ask you, Barbara, when you were talking about there may be entities involved, particularly in the funding aspect of the documentaries, that may actually be making the choices for different team members. How do you as a producer handle this aspect of synergy and positive feeling that Karen and Mary Kay have talked about in the collection of the team? How does that dynamic change, and how do you manage that?
Well, you have to be the cheerleader. You have to be the person that holds it all together and gives everyone that energy and that feeling that they're part of something that's important. And when they lose it, you got to bring them back. And it's like you're the coach of a team, and you got to get your players out there. And your quarterback doesn't feel that great today, but you tell him how wonderful he is and that he can still do it. If he's even with one arm, he could do it. And if you don't believe, then they won't believe. So you have to really keep them engaged and let them know that you believe in them and you believe in the project, and we can get this done.
I want to say, because I'm older than you guys, and I've been around for a long time, it used to be very much a male-dominated business. And it was yellers and screamers and creative geniuses, right? And they used to say something, window or aisle. And it meant you were going home. You want a seat on the window or in the aisle, and and people were being fired constantly. It was a revolving door. And that has completely changed. I mean, like, I didn't see a woman in the AD position for until, maybe, 5-6 years ago, because those were the hard asses who were, telling people what to do and cracking the whip and that sort of stuff. And now I think people have realized, that that's not the way to go. People aren't looking for crazy creative geniuses who, can do it by themselves. They're looking for collaborators. They're looking for an environment where creativity can actually flourish rather than the yellers and the screamers.
Well, it's interesting that you brought that up, Karen, because I wanted to ask you, what are you seeing, and maybe you just answered it, but what do you see with your students that are coming up as being in the academic world and kind of touching on the filmmakers of tomorrow? Is this the trend, or do you see it even going even more towards the looser, call it looser, kind of dynamics, or what do you see?
Well, I think also it begins with film school admissions, and I think a lot of the schools we talk, and it's like, we don't want that crazy genius who's making movies alone in their basement. I mean, we don't. We are looking for collaborators. We teach collaboration. It's super important to us. We tell them, that the connections you make on student films, those people you'll all come up together and rise together. And so we're seeing a lot more collaboration. We see it in the industry. We see it with the students as well. It still is very much kind of who you know, or more specifically, who knows you, who can I need, an editor. I met with this person last week, or I know this person at, from X, Y, or Z, or that sort of stuff. And so we try to now, I believe in film school, is teach some of those soft skills. Right? It's not that you can be an amazing editor, and an editor is a solitary job a lot of times, but if you don't know how to speak to the director or speak to your crew, your post-production team, it doesn't matter that you're this much talented than the person next to you. I'd rather take the person next to you who's going to be pleasant about all this.
Right. So, in this conversation, with this energy, we feel the love and the passion for the project. We've actually assembled them, and I think we've touched on it a couple of different points. But what are different kind of aspects of the actual contractual relationship or formal relationship with that team that we need to be aware of, or that current and future filmmakers need to have on the top of their mind when they're actually formalizing this relationship? What are different aspects or key points that you're looking for, Mary Kay, when you are formalizing that relationship with these different team members?
Well, everything comes down to the contract. What can you negotiate? And for the most part, everything is negotiable. Day rates, hit fees, credits. Are you going to be on the billing block? Are you guaranteed tickets to the premiere? Do you participate in any back end? You can always ask for the world, ask for everything that you can, or if a bump in credit is more important to you, say, if I hit these goals, if I hit these benchmarks, then I will get a bump in title or something along those lines. So everything is pretty negotiable, but I do think that it's super important to have all of those details buttoned up before you start work, just so that there's no hard feelings if something goes awry or anything like that. You want to create a seamless professional production, and so that starts with the first contract that you offer.
Karen, are there any specific kind of clauses or issues that you want to make readily aware to all the team members when they're coming together in your formal relationship with them?
Yeah, I want to go back to what Mary Kay said is, almost everybody has a contract, and you used to have a quote, right? This is how much I made on my last movie. You need to make that, or I want that plus 10%, right? Well, in California, about 2 years ago, because of pay inequity, you're not allowed to have a quote anymore. which has really just kind of blown up because people don't even know where to start. Where are we going to start negotiating? And that's really weird. No, there have been, over time, different clauses have been added in, about behavior, about sexual harassment. But is there anything I want people to really know? No, I did see in the chat, somebody asked what was a work for hire.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important. So even if you're a PA, you're not going to have a lawyer, you're not going to really be able to negotiate all the things Mary Kay talked about, because you're going to be given a flat rate, you take it or you don't. But you will be asked to sign a work for hire. And what a work for hire means that you are working for this LLC, for this production company, and anything you create, anything you do, the production company owns. And that for PA, the stakes are not very high, but for other people it is. And one really excellent example is with costume designers. So in the UK, they don't have this work for hire concept. So if I'm a costume designer working on a UK production funded in the UK, I own my costume designs that I did for this production. That means I can publish a book of them. That means if you make Happy Meal toys out of them, I get a cut because those are my designs on those toys. And so there are real financial repercussions to this. Whereas in the United States, because you signed that work for hire, whoever's financing the movie owns all of your designs. They own all your creature designs. They own all the special effects. And so that's really important to know about this work for hire.
Barbara, are you involved in, or maybe what is your involvement as far as the formal relationship with the team members? Is that something that you get involved with, or is that handed off to PBS or other financiers?
You mean the crew team or the legal team, or
Either side, either the creative team or the business side team?
Well, I get involved with the creative team because I'm basically supervising them more or less. They're working for me. The legal aspects and the rest of it, when I'm working for hire, I'm not really involved in that because PBS has their own distribution, their own lawyers, and their own teams to do that. So it makes it a lot easier for me to do my work because I don't have to worry about the things I don't like to worry about. But on independent productions, then I have to get involved. And luckily, I have a wonderful lawyer who's watching me right now. So I want to make sure, shout out to my lawyer, so she won't charge me an arm and a leg. But yeah, it's important. And it's important to have those people like a good lawyer and a good line producer, because we're usually the creatives and we're not that great at the numbers and the business and things, and dealing with the unions. That's another thing, unions and union contracts, and they change depending on what union you're dealing with or where you're shooting or what you're doing. So there are lots of different aspects, and music rights. I've done a lot of stuff with music, and music is really one of the hardest things, because who owns the music? Does the composer still own the music? Is it part of the company of the LLC? And so there are so many aspects to that. So
yeah. And I'll just do a quick interjection as far as the work for hire stuff, that it's not important, it's an absolute must that you have that relationship in writing. I mean, you cannot have a handshake deal for that kind of understanding with anybody on your crew, regardless of your team, or if it's a background actor. You just have to have that in writing and understood. There was a terribly interesting lawsuit about maybe about 5 or 6 years ago for an actor who was in out west, who'd had no contracts, and argued and that her performance within the film, she owned the copyright for that performance, and therefore she should have ownership of the film. And that went up to the Ninth Circuit, and eventually was ruled in favor of the filmmaker. But because there were no written contracts, she was able to assert that argument. And unfortunately, the filmmaker, the production company, they had to spend a significant amount of money just litigating that issue so that they can retain ownership. So the work for hire aspect is so very important, and you can underline it, bold it, whatever you need, that it just absolutely has to be addressed. So with, my little 2 cents, let me ask you, circling
Can
back.
I jump in with another interesting legal thing?
Yeah, yeah.
And this affects my students and people who are starting out is what's the difference between a PA and an intern, right? And working for free. And so what happened is Black Swan years ago hired a 32-year-old lawyer as a PA, or I mean, as an intern, right? I mean, if you're not asking for trouble right there, so he went and he picked up dry cleaning and he stopped traffic and he did all this stuff. And then when the production finished, he sued and he said, what's the difference between me and a PA? There was no quote learning environment here. I mean, I guess you're on set, you are learning, but I should have been paid as a PA. And so what happened is he won his lawsuit, and that stopped everybody in Hollywood for 2 years with internships as they tried to figure out what's the difference between an intern and a PA. And so now here in Los Angeles, you cannot intern in physical production. It just doesn't happen unless you're on the live daily talk shows in which they use interns and PAs interchangeably, but they're all paid. That you cannot intern in physical production anymore. Those are paid PA positions. And that was as a result of the Black Swan lawsuit.
Yeah, absolutely. So have everything in writing and make sure you clearly define what people's roles are and what their responsibilities and what their compensation is, right? Mm-hmm. And what better place to find someone who can do that than go to Lawyers for the Creative Arts. There's our plug. So for assembling the team, we talked about the energy, we've talked about certain deal aspects for the formal relationship. When do you start looking for these people, or when do you have them coming into your world? Are you doing this from the get-go? Is this sometime after the underlying rights are secured? When does this come into play? So Mary Kay, when exactly are you looking for these team members?
As soon as possible. As soon as possible, because people get booked out, so far in advance, and you really do, because you do want to, as Barbara said, work with the best people, the people that are at the top of their game, and who are better than you, so that it elevates the film all around, whether that's camera, costumes, lighting, music, all of it. All these elements are so important. So you want to get these conversations started as soon as possible. Like as soon as you're able to properly do it professionally, you have your law team in place, you have your financing, you have, even if you don't even have all of your financing yet, but you're on your way. I would say get your key creatives lined up as soon as you can. Get them excited about the project, and momentum breeds momentum, right? And
right.
So as soon as you can, lock them in.
So what about you, Barbara? When should you start getting these people together, or what point?
I agree with Mary Kay. In development, I start when I'm thinking of the project. I'm thinking of who I want there and who can shoot this and who can do my sound and my music, and as soon as, because that also makes the project more real, like even for me, because if I already have an idea, when I was younger, there was a cameraman that I know, he was so great, and I thought he can do anything. So I went out and I was by myself overseas and I was shooting something, and all I thought is, what would he do? And so I started imagining myself as him, because then suddenly I could see where the camera would be placed and what would be done. So once you start bringing in the idea of those people, or those people, absolutely, it really helps develop the piece even more so for you.
Outstanding. Well, I want to move over to some Q&A here. I think we've done, I cannot tell you how I appreciate just the information. It's been outstanding. And I love what Karen hit on as far as gender in film. I mean, look at this panel. I'm embarrassed to be here. Somebody else should be sitting. This is
Yeah.
just awesome.
Hey, Travis, can I throw out one more tip for people?
Yeah.
So a lot of films are filming out of state. You know, Atlanta is a hotbed right now. You know, New York, there are little pockets all over the country with film rebates. And one of the things they do is they want to hire local people, because if you're not local, they have to, you know, pay you per diem and put you in a hotel and feed you. And now you are much more expensive. So what I like to tell my recent grads is, when you do a resume, only put your email and your phone number on it. Do not put your address. Because if I'm in Los Angeles and I see a Chicago address, I'm like, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. That is a more expensive person than a local hire. But maybe you have a grandmother or a family friend or somebody you can crash on my couch, and, you know, and now you're local.
Yeah.
So that's just a tip I want to throw out, that if you're, you know, starting out or even in the middle, if you're not a key creative, because they're only going to really fly in the key creatives. So for everyone else, please don't add your address to your resume.
Yeah, that's a great tip, because my son is also in the business and he lives in Los Angeles. But when they're shooting something in Chicago, he's got a local address. So he's able to be a local, and he gets to come home and hang out with the family while he's working on stuff. Also, Jan said that it's all right for me. I know this is Lawyers for Creative Arts, that I could mention who my wonderful lawyer is.
Oh yeah, please.
Okay.
Way.
Wonderful lawyer. Her name is Davita Rice, and she is one of the best. You know Davita. She's one of the best in the business. Worked for Oprah, did everything. And the cameraman I was talking about was a gentleman who's now retired named Emmett Wilson, and he worked for PBS in Chicago, and he was amazing. So I learned a lot from him as a young wannabe cool filmmaker.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And I'd like to just round this out with our tips, is that if you are local to Chicago and plan on staying and working here in the crew pool, I do recommend that you have a Illinois driver's license, because of the tax credit. And it requires, you know, that we have to hire Illinois crew, and we only get the rebate on in-state citizens, so crew members. So so make sure that you get your Illinois driver's license or state ID, and keep it current.
That's such a great tip with Illinois, especially, and if you're filming in other locations, looking at what kind of tax advantages they may have for film. If you look at the requirements, Illinois has a very strong requirement for the employees being residents, and having that kind of advantage is just a huge benefit for assistance in the funding with your film. Great tip. I want to move to this question, and I'm going to do a slight pivot on one of the questions here, and then I'll circle back to it. But jumping off one of the questions is, if I'm a young person who wants to get involved in film, specifically in kind of a team area, being a director or an LP, or maybe on the business side as an accountant or an attorney, how do I kind of break into this industry? Where do I find my footing to get involved in this kind of area? What would you recommend, Karen?
Like I said, it's all who you know and who knows you. And so when you're starting out, no job is a bad job. Just get out there and meet as many people as you can and follow up with people. But, you know, so I think film schools or film students have, you know, a little bit of an advantage, because you're working on sets and you're meeting other people. But there is no reason on thesis films and kind of the MFA films, you know, those are high quality productions, and they're always looking for help outside of film school. You know, they're looking for makeup artists, they're looking for gaffers, PAs, they're looking for people who hustle. And that's a really good place to kind of get your start. And also, you know, resources from the Chicago Film Office, who knows what productions are coming into town, when they're coming, and who might be needed for crews.
Perfect.
I'll add to that too, is the networking, you know, piece is a really important element. So go to where the people hang out that you want to work with. So like film festivals, like attend film festivals. You know, I know a lot of that stuff has pivoted online, but there are other, you know, groups and resources. There's IFA Chicago. You can get involved with the Illinois Production Alliance. They're always, you know, happy to, they're always a great resource for film and television news here in Illinois, and a wealth of resources. Chicago Filmmakers is another one. Women in Film Chicago.
Yeah.
I'll do a plug for my organization. I'm the president of the advisory council at the Midwest Film Festival. So, you know, we're doing drive-in programming. That's how we pivoted. You know, so people can be in their cars, but also feel like we are experiencing a bit of what we used to have. And then also, you know, there's networking resources online as well. There's LinkedIn groups, there's a ton of different Facebook groups that are out there for commercials, television, Crew Up Chicago Film and Media, you know, production professionals. You know, there's a ton of those groups as well. And a lot of them are putting out crew calls or saying, some of them are last minute, but some of them are you know, more legit and like, oh, we're looking for this type of, you know, crew, or we're trying to crew up for this, that, or the other thing. And so I would say, you know, be thoughtful about your, it's real easy to get lost in the scroll, right? But if you're thoughtful and targeted, like, okay, I'm gonna, you know, this is part of my job, is I'm going to do research on, you know, you know, what's going on. I'm going to spend 15 minutes looking through, you know, these crew postings and stuff on social media, and then I'm done. And now I'm going to go do, you know, the other thing. But so I think networking both in person as much as you can at the places that, you know, are showcasing the type of work that you want to work on, and then also cultivating that for yourself online as well.
Yeah, and also, as you say, in those organizations and film festivals, volunteer. Remember to volunteer. When we get back to normal, volunteer, because that's where you'll be there. You'll be in the inside of it. And then at television stations, you know, people are like, I want a job in television. I want to do this. Well, everybody wants a job in television. Take the job in the television mailroom, and you're there and you're in. Take the job that, it's not the job that you want, but it gets you in the door. And once you're in, you know, one of the guys that's the head of all the field crews that go out started in the mailroom, and
Wow.
he ends up there. So, you know, you just have to get in, however you get in, and you're not always going to be paid money, or you're not going to make a lot if you are, but that shouldn't matter. If you really want to do this, you know, I always say I would do this for free if I had to. I would, you know, it's what I do, it's who I am, and this is all I want to do. And so I'm going to do this anyway. And many times I have done for free. So just get in where you can.
And and then work your ass off.
Yep.
You know, improve yourself so that you
Yep.
do get on the speed dial,
Yep.
and you are a strong referral.
Mhm.
You know, you'll work
You
your
know
way
what?
up pretty quickly.
You know, just as to build off of everybody's comments here, just to kind of add to it, I'm watching the chat kind of go up, and I'm actually seeing people networking on the chat and maybe providing opportunities to new filmmakers. I mean, right here, we're seeing opportunities for people to come join exciting projects. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
There's also Industry Days is going on. It just started, Industry Days at the Chicago International Film Festival. I was thrilled to be a part of, I was a mentor for the teams that are going to be doing the pitch. And so you know, it's really about how can you help other people, you know, and then because someday you're going to be asking for help or need a referral or whatever. So it's always good to give back wherever you can, whether that's volunteering or your time or your money, whatever resources that you have.
So I want to hit on a couple of these questions that are slightly off topic, but I think they're very, very important. And since we have this wealth of knowledge here, we should definitely tap into them. One of the questions is regarding, and this is pretty off topic, but I think it's worthwhile, is regarding submissions of unsolicited scripts of screenplays. What are best practices as a producer when you have an unsolicited script or something along those lines that come in, what's kind of your best practices in those situations? What would you suggest, Karen?
What do you mean as a producer? I have
Well, if you're a
somebody
producer-
wants to give me an unsolicited script?
Yeah, if you're looking for a project and people are handing you a lot of scripts or a lot of, well, scripts or spec scripts to look at and consider this as your next kind of undertaking, what's best practices in those type of situations?
Well, the thing about unsolicited scripts is a lot of entities, a lot of production companies attached to networks or studios or the big streaming services won't take them because they're afraid they're going to be sued, right? I used to work for a major studio, and I used to read 700 scripts a year. And I would go on vacation. This is in the old days before you get PDFs. I would go on vacation with a stack of scripts, a suitcase full of scripts, and I would just come back with the cover pages. And all of them had agents and managers. All of them had been covered. You know, they had already gone through the gauntlet before they actually got to me. And so do I want another script from somebody who hasn't been vetted in a way, right? And vetted means, you know, somebody besides your mom loves it. Vetted means you won, you know, even if it's a regional film festival or a film contest or, you know, in some way. So it's hard to have an unsolicited script, but it works sometimes. And what I tell my students to do is you find the production company you want to go to. Studios don't make movies. Production companies make the movies for them. They are, you know, there's a reason, you know, J.J. Abrams has Bad Robot. Bad Robot makes material that Paramount will then distribute, but you're not going to go directly to Paramount Pictures. And so you want to look up Bad Robot and you want to find out who's the creative executive. Because in the hierarchy of things, the creative executive is typically, it's a step, you were an intern, maybe you were an assistant, and now you're kind of a junior executive and you're trying to make your name. You're trying to discover the next Christopher Nolan. You're trying to discover talent. And so those are the people who are most likely to take unsolicited scripts. And I tell people the industry hours in Los Angeles before COVID was 10 to 7. If you call somebody before 10 o'clock in the morning, they're usually at a breakfast meeting. They're not going to take your call. But the time to really, and everybody goes to lunch from 1 to 2. And the time to call is between 1 to 2. And that's because everybody will be out to lunch except the person answering the phone. And the person answering the phone is more likely to have a conversation with you and talk to you and give you more than 10 seconds to pitch your script. And you say, look, and you make some sort of human bond. And then you say, will you read at least the first 10 pages during your lunch hour or whatever? And they're like, oh, and you might stand a chance with that person, you know, answering the phone. But unsolicited, and then in your cover letter for that unsolicited script, you have to tell me in the first paragraph why you love me. Why are you giving it to me, right? I mean, I don't do, you know, Westerns. I don't do violent movies. I like human drama. You can tell from On the Basis of Sex, you know, or even Secondhand Lines. So you chose me to read this because you like my work. You think we're simpatico in this way. So that's the first paragraph. The second paragraph is a little bit about the project. The third paragraph is, have you been vetted? What awards have you won? Did you get scholarships in film school? You know, how have you been vetted in some way? And then, you know, thank you for your time. So that's how unsolicited go. But like I said, it's hard for people to take unsolicited materials because they're afraid of lawsuits, but people will do it. And some people may, after the fact, ask you to go back and sign some sort of waiver or clause saying, you know, I agree that, you know, this idea might be floating out there anyways. So,
Barbara, what's the another question here is regarding PBS films. What's the pitch process or the introduction process for getting your concept, your story onto PBS? How does that function?
Well, you know, PBS has a lot of different entities. There's ITVS, there's POV, there are different series, there's American Masters, there's Frontline, and they're all different. And so you have to decide first and foremost where you think your piece fits within that, and then go in that direction and deal with the way they are taking ideas and scripts. And there's a formal way to do that with each one of them. And they're all different.
So we're kind of winding down in our time here, but I want to have like kind of last thoughts, last words from our panelists here, and kind of what would your recommendation be for a young filmmaker, a young producer who is not only looking to assemble their team, but just put their story up on film? What words of advice would you pass on to young filmmakers today, Mary Kay?
Don't give up. I mean, if you have the passion and you have the drive, this project is going to be living with you for years. You know, people on the crew, you know, they come in for, you know, however many the prep, shoot and wrap days are, you know, and that's fun. And then, you know, post, you know, comes and goes. But if you're going to be a producer, you have to really have a passion for the project, because it's going to consume you and take up much of your life for the next few years. And so, you know, you really, for me, what I learned is that it really has to be something that resonates with me. So the sweet spot for me is where art meets activism. So those are the types of projects that I tend to seek out, or would, you know, when people ask me to become attached to a project, that's part of my vetting process. You know, as is what, you know, how does this elevate an activist mindset, or like, how is this thought provoking? How does this change a social conversation? Is it amplifying traditionally marginalized voices? Is it, you know, woman directors, a person of color? Like I'm so sick of watching, no offense, Travis, no offense, Jan, but I'm so sick of watching movies that are, you know, made by cis white males. And there's so many other stories out there that need telling and that deserve a chance to be told. And so, you know, for me, I'm really drawn to those projects that amplify those types of voices, because that's, as an artist, that's what keeps me going and keeps me motivated on a project for years on end.
Absolutely. And so many different voices need to be heard. I mean, stories are told differently depending on different backgrounds and cultures, and I couldn't agree more. Barbara, what do you recommend for young filmmakers, producers? What words of advice do you have?
Well, you know, I wanted to make one comment about what Mary Kay said. I so agree with her about the films, because for the first time, I know I've been in this business, I never saw Lawrence of Arabia. And it was on the other day, and my friend's like, you gotta watch it. It's a great film. And it is a great film, but, and it's so grand. And I thought, what if the world had been fair and women got to make a grand film? What would that grand film be? What if Black people were allowed to make, what would that grand film have been? How much have we missed from filmmaking on all this time of wonderful stories that other people get to tell, where all of us who are not cis white males have been able to suspend our belief and identify with the hero, even though he didn't look like us, he wasn't the same sex or race, but we're able to do it because we're into the storytelling. Well, now it's time to hear our stories. And it's time for those same cis white males to identify with being a Black woman or being a transsexual. There's so many great stories out there. And my advice to young filmmakers and new filmmakers is tell those stories. Tell those stories we haven't seen. It doesn't matter. Put them out there. Tell them all.
Love it.
Great.
Love it. Well, thoughts, Karen?
No, I agree with them. They both said it really well. I think at the end of the day, you have to realize this is a marathon. It is not a sprint. You're not in this business to get rich or get famous. You do it, like Barbara said, she'd work for free on some of these things. You do it because you're passionate about telling your stories. And if you are not, then go find another job, because it's not easy. It is also a lifestyle choice too. You're going to be on a roller coaster up and down. And as somebody said to me, be nice to the people you meet on your way up, because you're going to see them on the way down. So.
Outstanding. Well, with that, I will bring this panel to a close. I want to thank everyone so much for the amazing information that you provided here, the words of wisdom. I really, really enjoyed this time. I'm going to hand this back to Jan. And thank you all, and be on the lookout
Thank
for
you.
part 5 in this series, which will be, I'm sure, circulated shortly. And with that, I will thank you.
And with that, I just want to say what an inspirational ending to this just amazingly informative program. I just it was really wonderful to be watching this. I just want to mention a couple of call outs. Taveri Crouch, who's been participating in the chat room, is the independent film coordinator for the Chicago Film Office. Christine Dudley is formerly with the Illinois Film Office, now with the Illinois Production Alliance. I probably have missed other names, so I apologize to those that didn't get mentioned. I will also say that of all the shout outs that we've had, I'm happy you got your lawyer in, Barbara, but
She is too.
one that I was not anticipating is Don Rumsfeld. So that was, I don't know quite what to do with that, but I do remember that quote, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's forget Don Rumsfeld and just say goodbye to everybody. Our next program is November 5. It'll be around the same time. We'll be sending out further information on that shortly. Not imminently, but shortly. And once again, just thank you so much to these panelists and to Travis for leading a really great discussion.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Take care.
All right.